headlines, ABC News and their top anchor reaching a settlement now with President-elect Trump in his defamation suit. The news network will have to pay $15 million to Trump and an additional $1 million for Trump's legal fees. Both ABC and George Stephanopoulos also ordered to issue statements of regret as part of the deal.
Guys, we got a pretty hilarious breaking news story for you tonight because ABC News and George Stephanopoulos have just reached an out-of-court settlement with Donald Trump over a defamation suit that Trump brought against them for $15 million. That is right. So in other words, ABC now has to pay $15 million to Donald Trump. And I should note there, an extra $1 million for his legal fees. So really $16 million. Now, this whole case is relating to some false comments that George Stephanopoulos made over the E Jean Carroll case earlier this year, and we'll give you that context here in a second. But firstly, I want to give you the actual details of this out-of-court settlement because it is objectively really, really funny. So first and foremost, Stephanopoulos and ABC News will have to issue, quote, statements of regret, according to Fox News. So in other words, Stephanopoulos is going to have to publicly go out there and apologize and grovel to Donald Trump as part of the settlement, which is really, really funny. But now take a listen to the $15 million. So according to Fox News, the settlement was publicly filed on Saturday, revealing that the two parties have come to an agreement and avoid a costly trial. According to that settlement, ABC News will pay $15 million as a charitable contribution to, quote, a presidential foundation and museum to be established by and for the plaintiff. In other words, Trump's presidential foundation. So basically what's going to happen here is ABC News is paying $15 million to fund, in other words, right, the construction of Donald Trump's future presidential museum. The irony in that. I mean, you truly love to see it, okay? You know, when Trump eventually has his presidential museum, which technically he should have two, right? Because he spent his first presidency as a resident of New York, second one in Florida. So really there should be one in Palm Beach, one in New York City, but I'm not sure what's going to happen on that front. But ABC News, I mean, you're going to have to give them like a founding brick, right? As a kind of contributor to the construction here. This presidential museum was funded in part by ABC News and George Stephanopoulos using your money that you didn't want to pay. So funny. You'll love to see it, okay? Just the irony in that is just absolutely fantastic. Now, if you're wondering kind of what started this whole defamation suit that's been going on for a couple of months now, this originally all began when George Stephanopoulos said about the E Jean Carroll case that Donald Trump was found liable of R-wording, right? Or the R word, you know, we know what we're talking about here, right? R-wording E Jean Carroll when that is not what the actual legal terminology of that settlement said. And here's that original clip that George Stephanopoulos is now facing, or I guess just settled a lawsuit over.
Yes, this morning. And you've endorsed Donald Trump for president. Judges and two separate juries have found him liable for rape and for defaming the victim of that rape. How do you square your endorsement of Donald Trump with the testimony we just saw?
Well, I will tell you, I was at the age of 16. I've lived for 30 years with an incredible amount of shame. It's a shame that you will never feel, George. And I'm not going to sit here on your show and be asked a question meant to shame me about another potential victim. I'm not going to do that.
It's actually not about shaming you. It's a question about Donald Trump.
No, you are shaming me.
You've endorsed Donald Trump for president.
Right.
Donald Trump has been found liable for rape by a jury. Donald Trump has been found liable for defaming the victim of that rape by a jury. It's been affirmed by a judge.
It was not a criminal court case, number one. Number two, I live with shame. And you're asking me a question about my political choices, trying to shame me as a rape victim, and I find it disgusting. And quite frankly, E. Jean Carroll's comments when she did get the judgment, joking about what she was going to buy, it makes it harder for women to come forward when they make a mockery out of rape. When they joke about it.
Doesn't it make it harder for women to come forward when they?
It makes it harder when other women joke about it, and she's joked about it.
Trump sued Stephanopoulos after he asserted in an interview that Trump was found, quote, liable for rape in a civil case, despite the fact that a jury actually determined Trump was liable for, quote, sexual abuse. which has a distinct definition under New York law.
Right. So they went out repeatedly and said that Trump was liable of the R word, when in reality, I mean, the E Jean Carroll case was totally bogus and like a just complete sham to begin with. But even what that said, it didn't say the R word. It said sexual abuse. That's what, Trump was liable for, apparently, according to this civil case. That's not a criminal case. We won't get into that. But long story short, again, not correct. And ABC News, it doesn't seem like before the defamation lawsuit was retracting it. George Stephanopoulos did not, to my knowledge, actually correct himself. And that's what happens, right? You end up with a lawsuit when you don't really clarify these things, or you just go out on, especially on a big network like this, and you use incorrect terminology, incorrect characterizations like that. Now, apparently, I don't know if this is true. This is according to Yashar Ali, which is a Huffington Post reporter, but he is saying that apparently now, in reaction to ABC News paying out $15 million to fund Trump's presidential museum, he says that ABC News and talent and staff I've been talking to over the past few hours are, and this is his words, stunned and furious about this settlement. Their anger primarily stems from the fact that they have faced repeated budget and compensation cuts in recent years, experienced layoffs, and yet the network, even if insurance paid it, has paid this huge sum of money to settle this matter, right? So all the employees at ABC News are like, what the heck? How do you have the money to do this, even though you're cutting our jobs, you're cutting our budgets, whatever? The point is, I guess, that the legacy media, as we so often say, is largely collapsing. And by the way, you want a great way to keep owning the legacy media and fighting back against institutions like ABC News, be sure to leave a like on this video and hit that subscribe button down below. Subscribe if you are new. I mean, after all, what better way to fight back against the mainstream media than supporting independent media like ourselves? Hit that red subscribe button. Now, it doesn't sound like the rest of the collective mainstream media is very happy about this. Here is Brian Stelter just coping over the whole situation. And we all know that he's one of the biggest defenders of mainstream media ever. Like, remember back when he did that CNN show and he was talking every day about how amazing the news media is. The journalists always get it right. They always tell the truth. How dare you question the media? Well, here was his reaction earlier today to the settlement of ABC News.
We've talked a lot in recent years about people using the courts trying to seek justice. Remember the Sandy Hook case against Alex Jones? Well, those defamation kinds of cases can also be filed by someone like the president-elect. So Trump filed a defamation suit. It was working its way through the courts. ABC was unable to get it thrown out initially. And actually, in the next few days, Trump was set to be deposed in the case. But ABC is avoiding going any further by settling. They're paying out $15 million plus $1 million in attorney's fees. They say this is going to go to a nonprofit, basically to Trump's future library. That's the idea. But maybe most importantly, Jessica, ABC is also apologizing, issuing a statement of regret.
So you certainly love to see the mainstream media actually be held accountable for once. Certainly. Now, here's what I'll say, though. I still don't think that these big legacy networks have largely learned their lesson, because you may have also seen, I did not talk about this in our video on the Army-Navy game because I didn't even know about this until now, but apparently CBS, who was airing today's Army-Navy football game, did not show or mention President Trump once during the Army-Navy football game. It's like you have the president-elect, okay, the incoming commander-in-chief, not just at any college football game, but at the college football game, of our U.S. military here. You're not even going to show that. And again, the political bias of CBS has been long known for some time. Let's not forget how their reporters handled things like the presidential debates. So this is something I've talked about before. I'm going to say it again in relation to this. CBS, ABC, NBC News, outlets like that, and heck, we could shut down the whole program entirely if we want to be fair here. They need to all have their public broadcasting licenses revoked. Get rid of them, right? Take them off the regular airwaves. And you might say, what? and we talked about this before, but you might say, what? You can't do that. That's a violation of free speech, except you don't know how this works, right? The non-cable networks, right? The networks that are around back in the 80s when you had satellite TV, like ABC, CBS, NBC, again, they do not operate under the same contracts as other networks like, say, ESPN or Fox News or MSNBC or CNN, right? Those historic networks actually get their broadcasting rights from the federal government, right? The FCC basically for free allows them to broadcast on what's called like public airwaves, right? In other words, you don't need to pay for cable to watch the TV. And these networks historically have largely benefited from that. But a big caveat in that agreement with the FCC, with the federal government, is that they're supposed to operate within what's called the quote unquote public interest. In other words, they have to be fair. They have to be bipartisan. You can't really be like totally politically biased to one side or whatever. You're allowed to do that. Right? You have a First Amendment right to be liberal or be conservative, but when you're receiving those contracts from the federal government, when you're allowed to kind of operate in a different reality under the FCC, part of the terms of that service is you can't be politically biased. You're supposed to, again, operate in the public interest. It's very clear. After situations like this, CBS is politically biased, ABC is politically biased, NBC is politically biased. To be clear, before people melt down about this, they have, yes, the First Amendment right to do so, but they should have to pay for the same cable airwaves, right? The same like private airwaves that CNN has to pay for, Fox News, again, all the networks outside of, the basic cable, although they're not really cable, right? The non-cable networks, I should say, basic TV. Why not, right? And this is an idea that Trump's incoming FCC chair has floated. I absolutely support it. The entire model is outdated. And yeah, by the way, these networks are not operating within the public interest. If they want to be political, fine. If they want to be propagandists, fine. But they have to pay for their own licenses like everyone else. Okay? We're not talking about we're not talking about Walter Cronkite here anymore. This is a different situation, different times. Go after those networks. Don't allow them to receive special benefits from the government. They should have to play by the same rules as everyone else. And I think really that's the next step here in holding the media accountable. But great first step, great news. Love to see it. Cha-ching, build that presidential library, courtesy of ABC News. Thank you, George Stephanopoulos. Okay. I'm gonna remember you in 10 years when I go to visit the Trump Library in Palm Beach. But with that said, let me know your thoughts on this in the comment section down below. Be sure to leave a like on this video, subscribe if you are new, and until next time, God bless and peace.